Hey everybody, it's Mrs. C. I'm coming to you today with a video on finding slope. But I want to do two things. I want to show you the actual formula for finding slope, which is a simple one. Kind of simple. I guess let you be the judge. But I also want to show you how to find slope with a little bit of a trick, I guess we could say. It's a little bit of a shortcut maybe. And then let you decide which method you find works best for you. So let's start with the formula. The formula for finding slope, first of all, we use a M. The M represents slope. And the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And there's your formula. So you might be asking, first of all, what's with the 2's and the 1's? So what happens when we have two y values and two x values, as we do, look right up here. We have two y values and two x values. What we do is we have to represent which value we're referring to. So if I just zoom this in a little bit more so I could write, we would notice this is our first xy pair. And maybe if I change color, I don't really like that color much anyway. This is our second xy pair. Now, if I called them both xy, you wouldn't know which was which. So what we do is we use a number to kind of indicate which xy pair we're talking about. So in the case of this, we'd say this is x1, this is x1, x1, y1. And then the other one we would refer to, if I can find the right blue color, as x2, y2. Basically, the first point has an x value of 19 and a y value of negative 16, and the second point has an x value of negative 7 and a y value of negative 15. And then all you really need to do is just fill them in. So if I filled in over here in my formula where I have y2, the y2 value is a negative 15. You see it right there. And so where there's a y2, I just put the number negative 15. And where there's a y1, I'll circle that one. I'm not going to change color. It'd take me too long. The y1 is going to be a negative 16. Then I just need to swap in my x2, which you see over here is a negative 7. And my x1 is a 19. Now, all you got to do when you're doing this evaluating from this point on, let me shrink myself down a little bit more, there we go, is you just have to be careful of these double negatives. Right here, you have a negative number next to a minus, and you're going to have to take care of that. So I'll change my color one more time. I'm just going to write what I have. In the numerator, I have a negative 15 minus a negative 16. And then in my denominator, I have a negative 7 minus 19. And so with my little double negatives, two negatives come together to be a positive. And then I just evaluate that further. Negative 15 and a positive 16 is 1. Different sign, find the difference. Sign of the higher number. And then on my next one, same sign, sum, add, keep the sign, so it's going to be a negative. And what is 7 and 19 added together? It's going to be 26. So my final answer is my slope is equal to a negative 1/26. And we like to put that little negative even with the fraction bar, not down in the denominator or up in the numerator. It just looks prettier. So my slope right there. And that's using the slope formula. But that isn't really the formula I would suggest that you use. I'm actually going to suggest you use a different formula because I think it's just a little bit more straightforward. So let's do the next example using this different formula. So what I'm going to do is clear out this and start over again. All right, so we're all cleared out. And as I was erasing what I had written, I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to show you the shortcut on these points so that you'll see the difference in the process and how much faster it is. By the way, I do have another video that goes over the slope formula, the one I just used, in a little bit more detail with a little more practice. So if you really just want to learn the old-fashioned slope formula way of finding slope given 2 points, you go ahead and maybe stop this video, watch that other video, and then come back to this one and see the shortcut. It might give you a little bit more, exposure, say. So what I want to do is, because I'm doing this one, I'm going to write my numbers a little bit bigger, because that's actually, I don't have to write my numbers bigger. I can just zoom them up. There we go. Now I don't have to write. Okay. So I like to call this the arrow method. And I'm going to show you why I like to call it the arrow method. The reason I call it the arrow method is because I'm going to draw an arrow, and I'm going to put that point right underneath. I know you hear that tapping. That's my pencil. Sorry about that. I'm trying to write as softly as I can. So I'm going to rewrite that ordered pair right underneath the first one, just because it's easier. I don't have to recopy them. Now what I'm going to do, since I moved them, is I'm going to change their signs. I'm going to make them the opposite. I'm going to make that one a positive, and I'm going to make that one a positive. So I move the ordered pair, I change their signs to positive, and now all I need to do is add them up. Now when I add using the rules of addition with integers. So if the signs are the same, I find the sum. If the signs are different, I find the difference and take the sign of the higher number. So we could be adding or subtracting is basically what I'm getting at. I have the 19 and the 7 coming together. I need to add those two together. 19 and 7, if you recall from the problem we just did, we already knew that. 19 and 7 was 26. And now I'm going to add the negative 16 to the positive 15. Signs are different. Find the difference. That gives me my negative 1. You probably remember that. And now to balance out my arrow method, I'm going to take the 26 and bring it under the negative 1. And I'm going to have my slope at that point. My slope is negative 1/26. Then again, remember I said if the negative is in the denominator or in the numerator, we put it even with the fraction bar, just making it a negative fraction. And there it is. That's the arrow method. Let me clear this out and let's do another one. Okay, so my next ordered pair, number 2, is 1, -19 and -2, -7. So I'm just going to rewrite these because when I zoom them in, it makes them fuzzy, and I don't like fuzzy. So I'm just going to write them a little bit bigger. If you were doing a worksheet, you would probably want to recopy them as well, just so you have more room to do your process. So let's see if you can remember what we did first. The arrow method, we brought this one under here. -2, -7. Then we changed the sign. So if they're negative, they turn positive. I like to circle. Once I change the signs, I like to circle because it reminds me that I did that process step. I did change my signs. And now we combine. A 1 and a 2 is a 3. A -19 and a +7. Signs are different. Find the difference. So 19 minus 7 is 12. And we take the sign of the higher number, -12. Bring this one under that one. And we get a -12/3. Now that can be simplified. The other one we did couldn't. The 1/26 can't be simplified any better than that as a fraction. But 12/3 is actually equal to 4. So we would find the slope to be a -4. Final answer. The slope that connects those 2 points is a -4. Let's try another one. So the next problem we have over here, number 3, has a point -4, 7. And it has another point, -6, -4. And so again, we're going to use the arrow method. Bring that one under. And guys, what you might want to do, just pause right now. Pause, see if you can remember all the steps. If you're taking notes, just look back at your notes. And then hit play and see if you did it right. So here we go, taking it. You know, I'm noticing every one that I have brought under has been a -6. I mean, a negative and a negative. So I got to find an example that doesn't have us bringing over always the exact same thing. It doesn't matter. We still do the same thing, but it's just been turning them both into positive, and that's not what always happens. So I want to do the next one where that doesn't happen. But let's finish this one. We have a -4 and a +6. That's a 2. And a 7 and a 4. 7 and 4 is 11. Bring this one under. And 11/2 is simplified. Can't get any better than that. So 11/2 is our slope. Okay, let's try and find the next one. I'm just going to erase this real quick. I know my next one. There it is. The magic is there. All right, and I think I'll just get rid of this one real quick. Here we go. All right. So move you up a little bit. Okay. Let's do this one. This one will be a little bit different, at least in the signs. So we have a 20, 8, and a 9, 16. So we bring this under. Write it like that, only they're not negatives for the first time. They're positives, so we're going to change them to negatives. What if one was a negative and one was a positive? Well, then you change the negative to a positive and the positive to a negative. You're just in this step turning them into their opposite sign. That's going to take care of that negative or that minus sign that's in the formula from the very beginning that I gave you. The y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This changing signs is taking care of that little formula step. So now we're going to combine. A 20 and a negative 9 is my 11, and an 8 and a negative 16 is a negative 8. Bring that one under. And there we go. Negative 8 elevenths. Negative 8 elevenths. Sorry, I was just thinking of something else. Okay, so the negative on the outside, negative 8 elevenths. I don't have an answer key, so I have to double check my process just to make sure we're doing it right. Looks good to me. All right, let's try another one. Over to the next page. So here's a nice little page of lots of process. And you do not have to rewrite the problem. You can just work with the problem that's right in front of you. So let's go up to number 9. In fact, a good idea for you right now, why don't you pause, try a couple of these, and then you can just fast forward and see if you got them right. So I'm going to just start working here. I'm going to move this one under. It's a negative 15. Hard for me to write that small. Okay. I'm going to change my signs. I'm changing the negative to a positive and the positive to a negative. I'm not circling because it's too small for me to circle, so pretend they're circled. The circle just reminds you that you did change the signs. Then we're going to combine the 6 and the 15. That's going to be 21. And I'm going to combine a negative 10 and a negative 15. That's going to be a negative 25. Then I'm going to bring this one under, and I'm going to have a slope. 25 over 21 is already simplified, so I have a slope of negative 25 over 21. And you could rewrite it with the negative right on the outside of the fraction bar. You can also leave it in the numerator or denominator, at least for this activity. That's fine. But yes, formally, if you saw an answer key, it would look like this. Kind of putting that negative off even with the fraction bar. Let's try another one. Now, some people ask me, do you have to move the right under the left, or could you reverse it? You could reverse it. Let's go crazy. Put this one under this one. No problem. I would have a 12 and a negative 18. I don't know why I just do through the parenthesis. Let me get rid of that. You don't need to draw a parenthesis. Just one more thing to get confused with. Okay. Then we change our signs. Make that a negative, make that a positive. Then we combine. That's going to be a negative 27 and negative 18, positive 18. Oh, that's a 0. And then we have to do always bringing your left under. That's the only part that I don't like. I'm afraid you're going to get confused if you do that, because over here, let's focus over on this one. First, let me do a different color because you can see where I'm going here. You bring this one under, and then to balance it, you bring this one under. And that just helps you remember that it's always, slope is always, we call it rise over run, or y over x. So it's the change in the y values over the change in the x values. So you have to always make sure that your y values are over your x values, x's. Your y's are over your x's. If your y's are not over your x's, you don't have slope. And remember, an ordered pair is x before y. So you're always going to want this number on top and this number on the bottom. It's called change in y over change in x. That delta symbol, that's a Greek symbol, alphabet letter D. It stands for the change in or the difference in. So it's the change in y's over the change in x's. Just saying. So when I do this activity, I always try to do the exact same thing over and over. But it doesn't matter. And that's kind of what I was trying to prove. Hopefully I didn't confuse you with that. If I did, just forget everything I just said. Let's bring this one. Let's go back to the way we were doing it before. Bring the 5 over 8. Change the signs and combine. 3 and a negative 5 is a negative 2. Negative 20 and a negative 8 is a negative 28. And bring this one under. That just feels so much better. I recommend you do it that way. Half of 28. That's going to be a positive 14. Final answer. Let's try another one. Bring this under. Negative 17 and 9. Change your signs. Combine 15 and 17. 32. Making sure 7, 12. Bring it up. Yep. And that's a negative 1. 8 and a negative 9. Bring that under. We get a negative 1 over 32. Final answer. Slope. Let's come up to number 13. Down to number 13. All right. Let's do number 13. Change a color. I get bored with the same color. Got to change it up. How about purple? Bring this one under. Negative 9, 1. Change the signs. Combine. So we have a negative 19 and a positive 9 is a negative 10. 12 and a negative 1 is 11. And then bring this one under. Negative 10. So we have a negative 11 over 10. That's the slope. We'll come over and do this one. Negative 7, 5. Change signs. Combine. 19. And 2 and a negative 5 is negative 3. Bring it under. 19. So this would be a negative 3/19. Okay, I just want to go back to the page before because I know that I skipped a problem here that I think would be a good one to do. So let me, I got to make that eraser bigger. Okay, let me just erase this, and I think it's number 5 somewhere. There's number 6, and there's number 5 hidden. I want to do number 5 because 5's a little special. So number 5, I'll still use purple. We're going to bring this one under. A 17 and an 8. We're going to change the signs, and we're going to combine. So we have a 0. 17 and a negative 17 is 0. And then negative 13 and 8 is, I believe, 21, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, yep. And then I'm going to bring this one under. That's not 0. 0 divided by 21 is 0. 21 divided by 0, if you do it on the calculator, you're going to get an error message. It says divide by 0, error. That's because you can't divide by 0. And so this slope is referred to as undefined. And I had a student a long, long time ago remind me that if you forget the word, which one is undefined, look at this. Under. Well, it's undie, but pretend it's the word under. The 0 is under the number. And whenever your 0 in a fraction is under the other number, that is underfined, or what we say, undefined. It's a nice little memory trick for you to help you remember an undefined versus a 0. So let's talk about those special slopes. So the special slopes are the zeros and the undefined. So when you have let me just put an example. Let's say 0 over 5. Now the 0 isn't under, right? The 0 is on top. And if you did that in the calculator, you would do 0 divided by 5, and that equals 0. So this is referred to as a 0 slope. Or if somebody asked you what's the slope, you would write the number 0. The slope is a 0. It has a 0 rise and a run of 5. If we reversed it and did 5 over 0, the 0 is under. That would be 5 divided by 0, and the calculator would tell you error. That is an undefined slope. And for now, we can leave it at that. We don't have to understand so much what these are doing on a graph or why are they undefined versus 0. Good enough right now for you mathematically to realize if you get a 0, it's a 0 slope. If you get an error message, it's an undefined slope. That's good enough for now, but not good enough forever. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to suggest you go on CUDA software. That's CUDA on your search engine, CUDAsoftware.com, and try the Infinite Algebra, the free worksheets that they have under Finding Slope Given 2 Points. And that's going to give you a lot of practice. And the more you practice your arrow method, the better you get at it. Again, remember, if you want to get a little bit more informed with the slope formula, that was the one we did in the beginning of the video, you go on ahead and you practice that one as well. Watch my other video on Finding Slope Given 2 Points, and that will help you with that one. Until then, I'll see you on the flip side.